Welcome to Disability Empowerment Now, Season 4, bonus episode 5, 6. Who's counting except my producer? Uh, we're back with Alaina Morin for part 2 of our spiritual recovery of Depeche Mode. Alaina, welcome back.
Thanks. I love talking about Depeche Mode with you.
Yes, so we closed out the last episode by discussing Ultra, but then we discovered we left a few notable songs of our discussion of my all-time obsession, songs of faith and devotion. Uh, my Joy, which was a B-side, and Mercy in You. We'll start with Mercy in You because that's a more easy song to talk about.
Yeah.
I told you via text this morning that the first several songs of faith and devotion are very spiritual in nature. And Mercy in You can describe seeking forgiveness and therefore mercy in
Yeah.
either your partner, your family, or in God. Uh,
Yeah.
it's no coincidence, I think, that Mercy in You is preceded by Condemnation,
Mhm.
which is another song we'll talk about in a later part, uh, and followed by Judas.
Yeah.
I think the band was meticulous in how they structured the album, and their follow up Ultra as well, because everything flows in terms of the track list, at least
Yeah.
in my mind. And
Yeah.
I've we were talking about just before we started recording the seminal albums being, in our opinion, Black celebration, songs of faith and devotion, Ultra, and the newest one, Memento Mori, which we'll discuss later on. But getting back to Mercy, it, it's very spiritual in nature, and you can't really declare it too easily a love song
Right.
more than a spiritual song. Uh,
I think it really is a spiritual song. I think, like you said, while it could be interpreted as mercy from somebody else, like a person, I do think that it's still in kind of a spiritual religious sense. His whole lyric of I would do it all again, lose my way and fall again, and just so I could pray again for the mercy in you. And I really think that is highly specific language, about a feeling so much from the higher power, right? That, like, why would you want to lose your way again? You know what I mean? Just to have the mercy of, like, a lover, scorned, right? Like, I think, well, that could be true. I think that mercy is suggested that it comes through the flood of a higher power, right? That anybody who finds mercy for another is still being spoken to through the higher power. And that's how
Yeah.
I interpret their lyrics. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I was also telling you uh, before we started recording, I picked up, no surprise here, the collector's edition
Mm.
of Songs of Faith and Devotion. And at the end of the album, it had two B sides. One called Death's Door, which was a remix originally written for a movie soundtrack. Haven't seen the movie, so have no idea. But then the proper beat side was My Joy.
Yeah.
And upon listening to it, I was like, this could have easily fit the album. Uh, Not to take away from the great ending, not to take away from the great ending of the album, which is Higher Love.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's almost a coda to that song and the entire album as a whole. The
Yeah.
lyrics are very simplistic, but
Hmm.
very straightforward and really encapsulate the uh, spiritual longing and beauty that the album hopes to find.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it was not one of their most sorry, plugging in
It's not
my
recognized.
computer. Uh, it's not recognized, and I don't think they play it too often. Uh, Sorry for the video. For anyone watching this after the fact. Uh, but I mean, not every song of theirs has to be a lyrical and musical complexity powerhouse that is uh, in your room or the bottom line or insight or
Yeah.
even combination. Uh, some of the most powerful songs are very simple.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think hearing it as a B side, like when you listen to Black Celebration with the added songs, it's called a heart and shake a disease. Those two songs
Yeah.
feel and sound like they could fit very easily on the album proper.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that most of their B sides that they discard in the proper album, when you hear them years later on collector's editions, uh, they're often as good
Yeah.
as any of the album tracks. And when we discuss later uh, playing the angel, I will have more to say
Yeah.
about that. And really, the only time the band really pissed me off as a fan. Uh, Martin, if you're listening, take note. if they are listening, I'm gonna die. But anyway, so they
if
get, yeah.
if they are listening, they're gonna kill us for saying it's called a heart is a B-side to Black Celebration. It's the B-side to Construction Time again.
Wow. Okay.
but not like Tonight
Yeah.
and Christmas Island and Shake the Disease are B-sides to Black Celebration.
Well, I'm referring uh to It's Called a Heart as a B side because they put It's Called a Heart as a B side
Right.
to Black on the Black Celebration Collector's Edition.
Did they?
Yes, they did.
All right. I gotta look
Yeah.
this up. Maybe I stand corrected. I might stand. You're right. I'm gonna look it up later. It sounds so much like Construction Time.
Oh, yeah. No. Uh, and the reason why they did that is because they were in between albums and they
Oh,
needed to release their first greatest hit,
gotcha. Okay,
which is catching up with Depeche Mode.
that makes
And they
sense.
needed new songs.
All right, so they're gonna kill me, not you.
I'm pretty sure they've heard really, really words from their fan base. Then, but so they they somehow make it through the devotional tour. Somehow make it through the recording of Ultra, which is a masterpiece of a album. And as I left off the ending, as I ended the last episode, I really think the final tracks of Ultra, namely Sister of Night, Freed State, the bottom line and insight, taken as a whole, those four songs really tee up what they would release with their next album
Yeah.
called Exciter.
Yes.
Not really thrilled about that album name or the album cover, but it's a really good album if you isolate it as a standalone experience
Yeah.
and not try to compare it to their three albums before
Right.
or the album they would release after
Yeah.
it. It's a terrible album name, Exciter. Uh, but
Really hung up on that one.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, there are great songs on that album. Even though they didn't choose their longtime collaborator, Anton Corbin, for the music videos, if you watch Dream On, it's a phenomenal video, and I don't think even Antoine could have done a better job on that
Hmm.
video. Uh,
Yeah.
I think a uh, alternative uh, title tracks they should have considered: Dream On, Free Love, or Good Night Lovers. Because those are way better encapsulating moments
Yeah.
than the name Exciter. If you're going to use a E word for a album name, make it Alexa. I, I promise the listener and the viewer this will be the only album title that I will get my panties in a bunch
I
over.
can attest to that. We've texted about your hatred of it multiple times now. So
So, so let me shut up and let you get to know your thoughts.
I have no commentary on the title. Okay, so I don't want to go down too much because we're trying to stick to religion, but I was like about to lose it when you said I can't stand, and I thought you were going to say the album because I was in driving lessons that year when Exciter came out, and I put it in. I was like, "Can I play a CD?" And my driving instructor's like, "Is this Depeche Mode?" They think they're cool still. And he was like, he hated it. He like loathed that album. He had the most scathing review after we listened to it driving for a few hours on the highway. It was like so funny. So I thought you were gonna go down that road. I'm like, wow, everybody hates Exciter. But no. So Exciter, I have no care for the type. I mean, when I was watching a documentary background on it, they intentionally chose a phallic cover, and the name I think is
I'm
supposed to be,
so glad you mentioned
yeah.
that.
And the photographer said they were posing and he saw the plant there and he's like, just stay, and then they
Yeah,
just went with it. And I think the name does somewhat match the album a little bit. It's not a religious album. There's
no,
one song we're going to talk about. I think it's pushing it on the religious symbolism. I only actually felt just the other day that maybe it qualified. The album's definitely about love, sensuality, grittiness of love.
yeah.
Sometimes it's not a dark album. It's a very thoughtful and playful album at times. I think they go
Which, which, sorry to
yeah, go
interrupt,
ahead.
which coming off their last two albums, Songs and Ultra,
Yeah,
Ultra especially dark, gritty,
yeah,
and if you think about going through the stages of recovery
yeah,
and then reaching a new uh, experience,
yeah.
the playful central experience. When
Yeah,
you when you paint it like that, it actually works very, very well.
yeah. It's a very central album. It's very like a new love discovered. It's very
Yeah,
middle-aged. They were hitting their
yeah,
middle age, and it's extraordinarily this just kind of awakening, this like new eye for life. So it is a softer album. It's very unusual for them. There's
yeah,
no dark conflict on the album. All their
no,
albums always have conflict with love, with religion. This album is very just much like I'm in love, and love's kind of floaty, and love's kind of this, and I think and you're like, okay. And then there's like a couple songs that are a little playful, a little more teenage boyish, right? A little
yeah,
like Dead of Night is a very kind of nasty, nasty boy song. They just kind of go for like, you know what? When I was a teenager and I felt like fresh love, this is how I felt. It's like it's a very kind of weird, exciting, strange feeling on that song.
yeah.
Um,
And I love the bombastic music,
yeah,
like the breakdown in Sister of Night on Ultra is totally set. And I'm
yeah,
pleasing for the eardrums to hear. Uh,
yeah,
and I think they carry that over and create a whole sonic music song off that bombastic nature.
Yeah.
It's very much a club song.
Yeah. I feel like we've totally just geeked out to Depeche Mode for 20 minutes. So I guess we got to get
Yeah,
back on track with religion. So I Feel Loved, I think, is the only song on Exciter that qualifies as a mildly religious song. And despite it being a super uber techno 2000s dance track, which is epically rushing, I think it's the epitome of Depeche Mode. I forgot how much I loved that song. And the other day in the car, I was like, like going to work. Um, it is, but it really feels like he's just kind of discovered a higher power. And the lyrics are very simple. It's I feel loved, kind of repetitively. And then there's kind of some like in the darkness of my soul, um, as temptation's taking hold through the pain and the suffering, I'm not caving in, I feel loved. And so it really sounds like this man who has kind of overcome the demons, right? And
yeah,
he's just letting the energy flow in. And so I guess you could interpret that as a higher power. I don't think we need to dissect this song too
yeah.
much. I think a listener just, if you want a fucking banger, sorry, swearing. If you want a banger from Depeche Mode, I Feel Loved is a banger. Like
Yeah,
that's the definition of what we call a banger. It's
yeah,
just it's their one head banging song, which is just like boom, boom,
yeah,
boom, and it's
yeah,
just I love it. I wish they had done more like that in their career, but that's all I'm gonna say about I Feel
yeah,
Loved.
yeah. And I'm gonna say nothing new than what you said.
Yeah,
Uh, so they return to their rock roots in rockabilly album, uh, Soundscape, with their next entry called Playing the Angel.
yeah,
And there are several songs on this album that we're going to dissect.
yeah,
Uh, First up, John the Revelator.
yeah. Super cool one. I highly recommend anybody to give a good listen to Playing the Angel. Goes for, like you said, the rockabilly, the Elvis, the crooning. Um, John the Revelator is very gospel, and it sings about a false prophet, right? It's John the Revelator, taken up to the highest high. And I think the lyrics that always stand out to me is he's claiming God as the only, what does he say? As the only right. He's stealing a God from the Israelites. He's stealing a God from the Muslim too. And there's only one God through and through. And it's definitely this like indication of Christianity, right? And kind of if we're tracing back to this kind of the spreading of like European culture, right, spreading the belief that Jesus is the son of God and he's the true prophet, and it's like the story's being kind of stolen right from these other previous religions, and it's I think the song goes right for the kill with that one. It's a very fascinating song, and I love that they did it. You good?
Yeah, so actually, background on the song because I found it fascinating is the song we just geeked out over, or that you geeked out over, is basically based on a 1930s folk song of
Yeah,
the same name.
yeah,
And I don't know if they've ever done that before. I don't know many bands that would develop a song off another
yeah,
song
yeah,
that they themselves did not.
yeah,
Right. And I just find that. And here is what Martin Gore said in a French interview, that the song talks about faith in God, no
Yeah.
matter what. It
Yeah.
also denounces the belief in a God who punishes and damns. In the
Right.
book of Revelation, John describes his vision of these seven angels descending, blowing into their seven trumpets and
Yeah.
causing plagues, epidemics, and floods that gradually exterminates a large part of humanity. Only the true believers remain. I
Right.
do not believe in all that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had read about that too, that he based it off of a song about the false prophet, and like you said, all these facts, the seven angels, seven, that I mean their lyrics reference that, right? Seven
yeah.
angels, seven trumpets. Um, so I do love that one. I think people should give that one a listen. I love Martin doing the gospel, crowd in the background, John the Revelator, like it's just it's a banger as well. That's a good one. Yeah.
And so next up is actually the first song and single that we have from singer Dave Gann about his recovery
Yep.
or going through his trials and tribulations. Suffer well.
Also filmed out in New Mexico while I was there.
Yes.
Yep. I don't think you were quite out there just yet. Maybe you
No.
had just right. Yeah, but they were just filmed right outside Santa Fe, at one of the old Western towns, that they preserve out there for films.
That
Um,
that does not surprise me at all.
yeah. Um, I don't think while this one is always directly religious, I definitely think there's just that the language, like you said, kind of talking about like you said, coming through something, the pain in life, overcoming something, and that as he says, I just hang on and suffer well. And so it's this kind of inevitability that there's pain, to life,
Yeah.
that there's mistakes. And I really think they just kind of keep it quite simple. He says things like, where were you when I fell from grace? It's kind of this question to God, right? Of
Yeah.
like, or the angels, right? Of like,
Yeah.
where's my guardian angel? Why am I
Yeah.
falling so hard? And so I really think there's this kind of almost like not only just question of where God is, but maybe even question of like the devil winning, right? It's
Yeah.
it's this definite kind of interesting song where there's no direct implication of those things. It just kind of toys with these ideas of like, isn't there supposed to be something here for me?
Yeah.
Like why am I suffering? And they're like, I guess if I'm suffering, I'm gonna suffer well. And so
Yeah.
it's a very interesting song. I think again, it's a banger. Bizarrely, this album has a lot of dance bangers on them and that
Yeah.
have very deep, heavy material.
Yeah.
I love playing the angel for that reason. But yeah, I don't think I need to get hung up on that one. Great song. I highly recommend anybody go listen. That would be the first one I'd listen to for this album.
So what about the sinner in me?
Also, another one I debated. I had a question mark next to it, I think, as well for a while. Again, I don't think it's fully God referencing. I actually think the sinner in me is more about acknowledging our darker parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
The mistakes we make, the sins we commit according to the Bible, right? Whether you
Yeah.
believe that or not, it's a sin. If poor behavior is a sin. And I think that's what he says. If I could just hide the sinner in me.
Yeah.
So it's really this kind of song about coping. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? With kind of the aspects of him. And what does he also say? He's like, and you're always around,
Yeah.
like it's again this kind of implication that there is a higher power, maybe kind of always watch, like the angel on your shoulder, right?
Yeah.
The conscience. So it's not necessarily a direct reference to God. I think it's more of a reference to the inner voice speaking to us and telling us we're not doing our best.
Yeah. I agree with everything you just said. How about macro?
Macro again, not fully religious. I think I'm stretching it with it a little, but it's about the universal cosmos, being all one. And it's ominous. And this is what makes me think it maybe is a little bit more about religion is Martin screaming. I hate the verses, by the way. I think that song, I'll avoid that song because I'm like, no, when I hear the beginning. But when you get to the chorus, I'm like, oh, like I am so hooked on that chorus.
Yeah,
I wish they had gone a different direction with the verses.
yeah,
Um, the chorus is so ominous. It's so like Martin's voice almost becomes just frightening, right? The reverb on it and just the like synths like ominously going in the background. And him just shouting, see the microcosms in the macro vision. And so there's this kind of implication that there's a vision,
yeah,
right? Like he kind of uses these distinct lyrics that and then he says the flowing overflowing rivers and he's talking about all these things and he's like rushing through me, thundering through my body. I really think what he's just kind of talking about is that we're all connected, and there's kind of a question as to why.
yeah,
Why is it all a microcosm in a macro vision? Like, why are we such a small little unit here on Earth in this bigger vision? You know what I mean? Of the world, this bigger realm. So it's interesting. I don't know. Do you have anything to add to macro?
no. So after this album, they released another greatest hits, a more substantial collection called The Best of Depeche Mode Volume 1. And the only new song on that album was a B-side from Playing the Angel that almost made the album called Martyr. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
another hard rock,
it's a good
uh,
banger.
a banger. And it's about getting rejected by love
Yeah,
again and again and
yeah,
again. And I really think it would have fit
yes,
uh, on the middle part of the album
yeah,
very, very nicely. And so that's the only missed opportunity that I think, because it could have come after Precious, which was the first music video I ever saw of Depeche
mm.
Mode. And that video blew my mind open. Like the concept, and then finding out later that it, it was about the painful divorce Martin and his wife, then wife, were going through, and how it was a amazingly personal song written to his, at the time, young
yeah,
children. And for the longest time, that was the only song that he would say, let me clear up the meaning about that.
yeah,
And I really respect him for that. And the middle part of the song, talking about his kids and uh, how he hoped that God was seeing through their eyes.
yeah,
And that part in particular is my favorite part,
yeah,
not only because I brought it in to this episode, but the sentiment of it, of
yeah,
a father witching that if there's any type of master plan, I
yeah,
hope God is seeing it through your eyes. I,
yeah.
I, I
Very sweet.
I always tear up and choke up because it's such a beautiful moment in a already captivating song that you wouldn't necessarily get from just the title.
Right.
And so I wanted to throw that in. Uh, should we go to what is undoubtedly the most philosophical album? Or
Yeah.
should we,
Yeah, yeah.
you,
Sounds of the
yeah,
Universe. I'm not a, I'm gonna just throw it out there. I'm not a massive fan of Sounds of the Universe.
yeah, I mean, the only song, it was the first album that I came in on as a fan. And I mentioned this to you last year. We've known each other a very long time. And whenever I heard the song In Sympathy, I always thought of you and how you acted then. Uh, but I mean, that song was not spiritual in any
Yeah, no.
way. No, uh, it, it's a song about going through the motions, and even if you don't agree with them, but yeah, I agree. I got the deluxe iTunes pads, which threw a bunch of extra remixes, demos on it, and listening to the whole album when you texted me, I think this is a more philosophical and cosmic album. I was like, yeah, it's absolutely. There is
Yeah.
very little concrete for us to talk about on this album.
Yeah. I actually even kind of take back that the song that I put down. Um, I I mean, I kind of liked the album at the time. I was excited for a new
Yeah,
Depeche Mode album, so I kind of forced myself to listen to it. And over the years, I've really grown away from it, and I don't really have a lot of good memories associated with it or feeling to it. That feels like the way their other albums hook me. Um, and funny story about Sounds of the Universe, because I do think people should still give it a listen if they want to be down the Depeche Mode rabbit hole. But
like listen to it once
yeah,
and then listen
yeah.
to
And
something else.
but quick story, and then we should probably just move on to the next album.
Yeah,
I did see them on the Sounds of the Universe tour. It was my second time seeing them, and I actually was very relieved at kind of what transpired was they threw out the set list the night I saw them. So Dave had been suffering a serious bout of gastroenteritis, was hospitalized, and they
yeah,
had canceled 2 weeks of their European leg. So they were set to start in Boston again. So I saw them in Boston, and they, uh, I think he just had a like, holy crap, I'm alive still moment.
yeah.
And they just like went full blast with like Question of Time and like all these and the audience was mostly European. That's what was wild. Was a lot of them had flown over. I was looking at their shoes and clothing. I'm like, these are not people from New England. And once you started hearing their voices and they all smelled good, and you're like, what is going on? Um, People had flown in to see Depeche Mode.
Wow.
And so it was sold out, unlike the first time I had seen them, 10 years prior, or like about 8 years prior on the Exciter tour. Um, and I'm really kind of relieved they did not do the full set, because I just am not that into Sounds of the Universe. So
Yeah.
I had a blast that night. They did Enjoy the Silence twice. They just ran it a second time because the
Wow.
audience was going so mental for it. And he just looked back at the band and you could see him laughing, and he was like, again, and they're like, And they just
Sure,
started, and he just
sure.
started right from the
Why not?
beginning. It was so funny. We were all like, ah! The audience was just screaming. So it was like 15 minutes of Enjoy the Silence. It was so, because it's a seven, as you know, the concert version, if you listen online, is
Yeah,
7 minutes long.
yeah,
And that's kind of their typical. They typically do the
yeah.
same live version. And so it was like twice in a row, and people, and I was like, man, he's on a new lease of life tonight. Like, I was so happy. I didn't want to
Yeah.
hear anything from Sons of the Universe. They did like 2 songs from it.
Wow. Wow. Which ones? I mean, who the fuck?
They did In Chains,
Yeah.
and was it Come Back?
Yeah.
Because I
What?
remembered the Moon Man. I was trying to
Yeah.
remember. I was like, there was like a slower one. It was Come Back. They did some kind of, and that's a sad one.
Yeah. But what I like about them, and they've been on the record about this several times, that particularly the first single of every new album sounds different
Yeah,
than than anything they've released before. That's why they released Wrong as the first single of that album. And oh my, you watch the music video to that.
yeah,
It is born drawing it,
yeah,
it's almost like a horror movie for
yeah,
times.
yeah, yeah,
And Dave was really into it. Andy hated it. Oh, he was like, this makes no sense. We're not in it. We've never not been in a music video.
yeah,
Put us in it, and they make a cameo. But
yeah. They're
I,
just featured watching the car go by in slow
yeah,
motion.
but yeah, it's a 2 hour horror film condensed into 5 minutes or
Yeah, it's
something.
disturbing. Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on
Moving along is to Delta Machine.
to album that when it came out, you really enjoyed.
No, I hated it when it came
Yeah,
out.
no, I would
Strike it or
be,
oh, you're being
I would,
sarcastic.
yeah,
I was like, nope, strike that in reverse, and I hated that one when it
I,
came
no, I still remember the Facebook post,
out.
your review of that album, and I was like, holy cow, they've finally broke her fandom up.
I had another Depeche Mode friend who was like, "What?" when he saw the Facebook post too. He's like, "What's right?" He like lived 15 minutes away. He's like, "What is wrong with you? This album's amazing." And I was like, "There's not one good thing on this album." I've since grown fond of quite a few songs on it, but I really struggled when it came out. It was such a departure, like Exciter, a
Yeah.
very big departure.
Yeah, before we get into the 2 songs we're going to talk about, Slow has to be mentioned, even though it is not a direct or indirect spiritual
Yeah,
song.
yeah,
It's a love song. It's about sex. I mean, let's
yep.
be
Pretty
real.
blatant. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. But the reason why we're mentioning it is it was actually considered for songs of faith and devotion.
Really?
Yes,
It had been around that long?
yes. And they held it back. Now, why they released it on a album. I don't even know the length of
About 20 years.
time between those two albums, but it is the oldest B-side that we know of
Mm,
that Depeche Mode has,
brought it back.
which which blows my mind because when you listen to that song, yeah, you can totally place it on songs like you can My Joy. I mean, why did those two songs get caught? But then what transpired for them to drag that song? And it's a good song out for Delta Machine?
Yeah.
That's the unanswerable question. It's rhetorical. Now let's get back into the
Yeah.
two songs we'll discuss. Uh, Angel, what do you have to say about that?
Angel's really, again, we go back to Dave's crooning,
Yeah,
it is kind of Elvis style singing. And I love when he does that. I think he's really good at it. And he does, I think the song's really about like redemption,
yeah,
you know, kind of finding love and peace. And it's a very interesting one. It's very piano driven, which Dave doesn't typically sing on. Usually that's Martin on the piano songs.
yeah.
And so it was interesting to hear no, sorry. Oh my goodness. I'm talking about Heaven. Heaven is the piano one.
Oh,
But
yeah,
Heaven's not about redemption.
yeah,
Angel's
no,
about redemption. I'm
yeah,
just mixing the two up. No, Angel, he does sing like a, yeah, he is gritty on that one too.
yeah,
Angel's a little more gritty and
okay,
electronic and what do they call it? Industrial. It's very
yeah,
edgy, but he does do that Elvis-y thing with it
yeah,
on the whole album actually. And so I think it's about redemption, love, and peace. It's not my favorite. I'm not a fan of the way Dave kind of. This reminds me of Macrovision, where like
yeah,
it becomes two different songs. There's like this weird rhythm to the verse that I'm not a fan of. But I
yeah,
think like the breakdowns are soft in the chorus. You know what I mean? It's a I have mixed emotions about Angel, but it's a good song if you need to if you're feeling on the edge of pain and you're kind of getting through, you know what I mean? You're seeing the light. This is a good album.
yeah.
Good song.
Yeah, the band says it's much more uh, personal, written from a personal point of view. Uh, and I mean, I will say the opener, Welcome to My World, which
Mm,
again is not spiritual by any means. Uh, but I loved that track
mm.
because it has violin,
It
and
reminds me of
I'm
One
a
Caress.
sucker for strings.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
soothe my soul, which again, it's not
It's a
uh,
banger.
spiritual, it, and it's very stark in what it's about. You can even guess. Uh, this
Similar to
album,
Slow.
yeah, this album goes interesting places,
Yeah.
but you have to be ready for it. So
Yes.
we've discussed Angel. What about Heaven?
Kind of already described it. It's
Yeah,
piano. It's a soft, sad song. Opposite of Angel. Angel is not soft and sad. My bad.
yeah,
Heaven is soft and kind of sad.
yeah,
It's about life's challenges
yeah,
and inevitable mortality. I think it's about like kind of transcendence, like discovering yourself, but
yeah,
there's kind of this there's joy but pain to it, right? Again, this is a common theme with Depeche Mode. is joy
Yeah.
doesn't come easy. You know what I
No.
mean? And I
Yeah.
really think heaven is kind of about that, is this acceptance of the reality of life and then
Yeah.
finding the meaning behind it and the joy behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the song Slow, getting back to that, was originally written by Gore as far back as the early 1990s
Oh,
for songs of faith and devotion, but was pushed aside until the Delta Machine sections, taking on a much more
bluesy.
bluesy song.
It works though.
So yeah, it uh really really works.
And I'm just
And
gonna say Soothe My Soul is my favorite on that album. That I
yeah,
cranked that one going to work this morning. It's a total rager. I love that one. I love the dirty lyrics. It's pretty
yeah,
epic. I think it's a worthwhile listen.
yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So Spirit, the next album, which they couldn't know at the time, would be their final album with
Yeah.
original band member Andy Fletcher. Uh, you had so much love as a possible uh, song to discuss.
Yeah, I changed my mind on it. Same with like Sons of the Universe, where it was Little Soul. I think we're pushing it with those two. I think if you're going back to Sons of the Universe, Little Soul is just kind of about leaving a footprint on life. I think again that's a
Yeah,
very philosophical. And I think So Much Love is very similar on Spirit, where it's really just about a person who's got energy flowing through them, and ready to give it to others. And Spirit is really about humanity
yeah,
and politics and the state of
yeah,
the world
yeah,
currently, like literally current state of events in the last decade, when it was made in 2017,
yeah,
2016.
yeah,
And I think that it is kind of a flyover for this subject matter for this, but
yeah,
I think the album has some really good stuff on it. I think
yeah,
the first few songs on the album, like Pull the Trigger, or no, Hey Scum, is the title of it. I think Where's the Revolution? Um, those are great songs. I
Hey,
think there's some,
Scum. Uh, Scum is actually the fourth song. The opener is going
yeah,
backwards.
yeah. I like the whole opening of the
Yeah,
album. I like all of those. I think the later half gets a little wonky. But for viewers who want to, or listeners who want to give it a listen, Scum's my favorite. I think it's just epic. But I also love Where's the Revolution. I crank that one a lot. I love, again, Martin's chanting. They kind of go back to this weird old style of music making. It's very interesting. So yeah, I don't think there's any religion on that album. It's really a commentary on just our BS that we create as
yeah,
humans.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so now we get to the most recent album, which is a favorite of both you and mine. Uh,
So I had to convince you to give it another listen.
Yes, and I'm really glad you did, cause I I have to be honest. Listened to Mental Mori once, and then I put it aside. I also listened to Spirit once, put it aside.
Yeah.
Listened to Delta Machine once, was horrified by your Facebook post.
Everybody was. You and the
And,
whole world.
and I put it aside. Uh, but some personal tragedy made me pick it up again. And now I have not stopped listening to it at all. It's become you closed out the response to my pun, uh,
Sorry.
calling all friendship some great reward, which, let's be honest,
Lame.
well, yes. Uh, yeah, but you said you cherished our friendship, which is very apt and right back at you. Uh, but to me, it's a album that I am remark remarkably close to. It's a album that I cherish listening to uh now. And so we have several songs on this album
Yeah.
uh that are spiritual in nature and
Yeah.
as they should be.
Yeah.
Uh why don't you start it off with Soul with Me?
Yeah. I know we're probably going to go over a few minutes on this one. I felt like we could have done a whole episode on Memento Mori. Honestly, I was ready to leave a cliffhanger for the audience and be like, you know what? Let's cut it off. Let's do a third one. Um, I think we can get through it because I'll get to Soul with Me, but I think Memento Mori, as you're already hinting at, is a really like thoughtful album on the end of life, and that is what Memento Mori means, is all things die. And it's an Italian, it's Italian. And so I guess if viewer discretion, listener
Uh,
discretion is
Sorry, Elena, I
okay.
have to cut you off. My producer told me we just ran out of time, so there will be a part three. In
Cliffhanger.
all, what?
Cliffhanger.
Yes, cliffhanger. Uh, so join us next time when we talk about the whole album and probably a few more whole albums that we cannot stop listening to or talking about, and we'll tease the next mini series we'll be doing together because just like this music, we can't get enough of it.
Is this where I just end it and don't say goodbye? Thanks for having me. I'll see you next time.
See you next
All
time. Bye.
right.